Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis with a 40k Tactics video. I'm going to talk about a specific type of build today, which I like to refer to as the control list. This is a list that relies on taking control of the board in order to win. It will not burst you down with masses and masses of firepower on turn 2 and just blow half your army away. It's not Tau. It's not an army that will just fly into assault and just leave you there for the rest of the game. No, that's more Tyranids and Orcs type of thing. No, this is an army that will spread out across the board, grab objectives and hold them, meaning that when it comes to your turn and you want to score, it's very difficult because they've got such board control. And it's a concept I've learned playing Hearthstone, actually. You have the control list, the mid-range deck, and the aggro deck, or the aggressive deck. And the aggro decks will just hit you and hit you and hit you until you die. That's the whole point of an aggro deck. But beating an aggro deck does not require much skill. It just requires neutralizing their key elements. Mid-range decks will have an early quick start, but they need to keep the tempo going in order to win the game. If they get their tempo broken by having to play slowly, they will eventually run out of gas and lose. Control decks have a really bad start. They are very slow, they don't build much of a board, but then in the late game, they start dropping out really big, heavy stuff and just whack you down with the big stuff and just keep your board clear so as you never have a chance to come back. And this is a concept I think applies to 40k. So we have our aggressive list that will just rush you down. Fast lists, mechanized lists, those sorts of lists are designed to kill you and kill you quickly. They are designed to rush you down and then just blast you at close range or chop you up in melee. Mid-range lists are the lists we often see, the take-all-comers type of lists. They can handle the early game speed, but they can run out of gas if you don't use them correctly. Most Space Marine armies function like this. If you can neutralize their heavy tanks and their flyers and whittle away their tactical marines, Space Marines can lose. But if Space Marines get a good start and can start snowballing in their reserves and doing some serious heavy damage, they are very, very hard to beat. Very hard to beat. And then you have the control list. Now these lists I think are best suited actually to horde armies, or at least armies that can make large blocks out of their troop section. So Astra Militarum and Tyranids, and to an extent I know the old Necrons could do it. I don't know if the new Necrons go up to size 20. But they do. And Necrons are very good at board control because their starts are never anything special. For anyone who's ever played Imperial Guard or Tyranids or Necrons, on turn 1, you don't do that much. Your army is quite short to mid-range shooting. So your first turn is either going to be spent holding or advancing. If you spend that first turn holding and you're facing an aggressive list, that list is just going to be right up in your face on turn 3. And unless you've blown half of it away, you are dead. You're just dead. Whereas if you make that slightly tempo start, you push out and you start to claim objectives around you, that allows you to build up points. And on turn 2, you can advance and fire. Turn 3, hold, fire. And these aggressive lists can just rush at you, suddenly are meeting walls of fire 12 inches further out than they expected to. They expected to be clashing with you about 6 inches outside your deployment zone or on your deployment zone. They do not want to meet you in the middle of the board because aggressive lists are not good at wars of attrition. They will just be, it's like using a hammer. It just, bang, it smacks you into the ground, and if it doesn't break the first time, then the handle just snaps and you can't use it properly. If you can blunt the first assault of that hammer, you will win the game. So meeting them on their terms, i.e. just outside your deployment zone or on your deployment line, is a recipe for disaster. Because every unit that breaks is either off the board, sweeping advanced, or so close to going off the board that you cannot fail the morale check anymore and is usually crippled. Whereas, if you meet them in the middle of the board, they've ate less shooting, but they're taking units. Yeah, they might sweep a few, but units that fall back are only going to be on your deployment line. You've got another turn to rally them, turn them around and put another blast of fire into them, rather than just being off the board and that unit's just gone. Kill point games, it's tricky. But in objective games is where the control list really does shine. So in 11 out of 12 missions, this list is really quite strong. I'm not going to give you an exact composition, but this is just my thinking of how I go about making a control list. So the first place for a control list to start is in its troop section. It needs presence. If it has a really, really small army, it cannot control the board, because that's the whole idea. It's not control as in kill out units one at a time. It's control the board and then mess with your opponent later. So you need big troop units, by which I mean minimum size 10. So full size tactical squads, infantry squads, Necron warrior squads. Block them out. Get big units on the ground. Why? Because big units are very hard to shift. 50 guardsmen do not die. If you put a commissar and or a priest in there, they just do not die in 2 turns. 2 turns, you'll be lucky to wipe them out. 10 Space Marines are annoyingly hard to shift. Trust me. 20 Necron warriors with the new reanimation protocols are unbelievably hard to shift. They just don't die. And that's the whole point. You need large and or resilient troops, preferably both. So units like Space Marines and Necron Warriors are your best bets for this. And their job is to come out of your deployment zone and grab every objective they can reach. So you want 3 squads, minimum, I say. So 3 infantry platoons, 3 tactical squads, maybe 2 warrior squads and 1 full-size immortal squad. That's your core, and these are the units that will actually win you the game. You then need a HQ who will be beastly enough to kill if an aggro deck list comes running at you to kill the big enemy monsters. So a captain with a thunderhammer and a storm shield, a terminator armor, is incredibly sticky. And if you make him if it's a librarian instead, he has force and can just kill any monstrous creature like that. An Imperial Guard commander is not as good for this job, but they can use the order system very efficiently to get ignores cover, precision shot, split fire, and coordinate the attacks so as all the big stuff goes down. And that's the other thing a commander will need to be. They will need to provide synergy for the rest of your army. So this is why 2 HQs often work best in control. 1 beast, 1 multiplier. 1 person who will just go out and kill stuff in droves, be it through wielding a combi flamer in one hand and some badass relic weapon in another. I don't really mind. And then you need the other guy who will do all the other techie things. Psychers, orders, shooting attacks, buffs, all those sorts of powers and tricks and abilities are what you need out of your other HQ. They are there to make your core much, much more efficient. Because 10 Space Marines is good. 10 Space Marines with divination powers on them is unbelievably good. 50 Guardsmen are okay. 50 Guardsmen with prescience and first rank fire are unbelievably annoying and powerful. And if you can stick forewarning on them for a 4+ invuln, oh dear God, you are never going to kill them and they're just going to murder you. Yes, I know, I said Guardsmen will murder you. I'm not kidding. So in the early game, your job is to get out of your deployment zone and grab every objective in your half of the board. So that's probably get the first 3 objectives secure by the end of turn 2. If you haven't got them secure by the end of turn 2, then your opponent is probably got at them already and you're on the back foot. And stabilizing as a control list is tricky without some very, very good play. Trust me. So by the end of turn 2, your half of the board should be completely secure. There should be no enemy units in it. Any deep strikers should be blasted off the board. Yes, I know, Terminators are a pain, but they should be shot to all hell and then locked in melee for as long as physically possible. Maybe it's just throwing a 20-man squad into them and they're just going to be there all day, killing 1 or 2 guys at a time. That's what Terminators are bad at, is killing hordes. So after turn 2, you need to transition into this mid-game. And your reserves become very, very important. So flyers are a great way of playing deterrent. They can shoot down enemy flyers and hunt enemy tanks. Or they can be used to just clear out swathes of infantry. It depends on what you equip them with. So Storm Talon with twin-link las cannons and an assault cannon can go hunting tanks. It has rending and 2 las cannons, and a twin-link las cannon or 2 las cannons. Ouch. An Imperial Guard Vendetta, I sing the praises of Vendettas. They are really good at killing anything with an armor value. Bang, bang, bang. 3 twin link las cannons, that's a dead flyer or a dead tank most of the time. On the other hand, you might have more bomber type units. So, or burner bombers are strength 5 AP4 ignores cover blast templates. Ouch. Very big ouch. They will kill a lot and can clear out swathes of infantry ready for your controllers to just go in for the kill. You can also use your armoured units in this support manner as well. So tanks with pie plates, large blast, just bang, unit destroyed. Tank hunting units, bang, that tank is no longer a threat and will not be dropping pie plates on my units. So it's like a take-all-comers list. There's a very small difference between a control list and a mid-range list. The problem with a mid-range list, this take-all-comers type list, is when it runs out of steam, it's dead. If you can silence its key units, it's dead. With your control list, you should be able to pull through, even if you lose a few key units. So if your tank hunting tank is popped, then you should have enough anti-armor around. If your support unit that's giving out all those buffs is shot through the head, you should still have enough power in your core units to at least find a way to claw through and stabilize back into a normal setup. You will have to be very adaptive and reactive to how your opponent approaches it. So if they go first and rush out, you need to rush out to meet them. You need to come out quickly and start blasting. Otherwise, they're going to rush you down. If they play very slowly, that's your cue to come out and then start controlling the board because they haven't come out. So by the end of turn 3, what should have happened is you have control of your half of the board. That's the first. And any units getting up to your control units, such as your guards and platoons and your infantry and your tactical squads, should be weakened out by masses of firepower. Rapid fire weapons are the best for this, but pie plates will do a grand job as well. That way, those units that you've sent out to grab objectives will be at least more resilient in the assault, because those units that are going to hit them are much, much weaker or are putting out less shots, so are going to do far less damage with shooting. Now, where a control list often comes into his own is the end of the game. Now, if you've followed through and you've got into your late game, by which I mean turn 5. Turn 5 onwards is what I call late game. The end part of the game where you really need to just go for the throat. And this is where a control list becomes really, really good. If it's got that board control early on, it has probably established a lead. It is probably 2 or 3 points ahead of the more aggressive list or the mid-range list that's been broken on its anvil. And now it can go for the throat. So leaving units behind to hold your own objectives, every other unit can go and absolutely burst. It turns itself from being this tempo list into a very aggressive list at the death, because its units are still alive and around to do that damage. So if your 20-man warrior squad has been whittled down to about 15, it will then just it will just have a ghost art behind it, and they will just rush down the nearest objective and blast the opponents off it, to the point where they maybe have one objective left at the end of turn 5 or 6. And they're never coming back from that. Even if they've got the most unbelievable units left on the board, they are not coming back from having one objective in a tactical objective game. They will never get to your objective if they're playing Emperor's Will. They will never be able to deal with your fast attack units or your heavy support units in those sorts of missions. And the relic, long gone. They'll never get near it. And that's the beauty of it. You control the board and present this wall to your opponent. You say, right, you want my objective. You want my home objective? You want to stop that unit that's going for that's got the relic and is running away? Tough. You've got to break through all of this first. And they'll just break on that wall. They might kill 2 or 3 units on the way through. That happens. You will lose units. You have to accept that. But you should have enough presence left to deliver a counterblow and hold the objectives. Do not get caught in the thrill of a hunt to go and hunt down the remnants of your enemy. Just keep on the objectives and score as many points as you can in that end game. Because if you are slightly behind going into turn 5, but your army is still relatively solid, you can rush down, clear out objectives and just score 1, 2, 3, 4 points really, really easily because you've just got total board dominance. I don't know if that made any sense. What I'm trying to get at is when you're building a list, you generally have three sorts of setups. The very quick lists, the very slow lists like control lists, and then those lists that bridge the gap, that have enough tempo to keep up with an aggressive list, but presuming they keep that tempo, they can just deal with the heavier elements of control list in the later game. So, okay. So here's my tips if you're building a control list. Large troop section. Make sure you block it out with lots of guys, preferably resilient ones. Get yourself a very techie support HQ. Psychers, orders, and such are the best examples. Get yourself a solid combat HQ who will be able to deal with most enemy problem units, such as Terminators. So a guy with a good invuln and a power axe, or something like that will just cleave through Terminators and be sticky. He can take the wounds on everyone around him and be really sticky and just kill him. Then get yourself some very heavy units. Now you might be thinking, hang on, how am I supposed to fit all of this in? You fit this in because you generally can't play control in small games, I've found. Playing a control list needs 2,000 points or more. But get your heavy units, get a flyer, get a tank hunting tank, get a pie plate tank, preferably 2 of each. Get yourself some support, some specialist units for deep strike and outflank that can go in and deal with any units up close and personal and are semi-sticky, so as if they do go down, they'll take in a fair bit of fire on their way down. And then as it comes to playing the game, first 2 turns, control your half of the board, secure all the objectives on your side, and deal with any other units your tactical objectives ask you to do. When it comes to the mid-game, hold your ground and advance slowly. Just maybe push up to the next objective and make that your new wall. If assault armies come running at you, gun them down and meet them where you want to meet them. The middle of the board, their table half. So even if they break you, they've got to run through the entirety of the board, taking fire the whole way in order to get there, rather than just being able to drop on the objective and score immediately. And then in the late game, go for the throat. Establish any lead you have in the mid game and break them. Just break the back of the opponent's army with one powerful hit. So that's my thoughts on controlling. If you are an aggressive type of player, countering controllers is very difficult because they can deal with your big threats quickly. The best thing I can say as an aggressive, if you want to play aggressive, is to protect your key units. Protect that monstrous creature that you're relying on to kill half their army. Protect that pie plate tank. Protect that combat beatstick. Protect that firepower, the unit that just lays down all the fire and support. Protect the units that are giving out the survivability buffs. Otherwise, your chaff units that are just rushing the opponent down are dead. And when the support elements go down, you ain't got a hope. You have to protect them. Control armies can live without a powerful tank or without a combat beatstick. You can mix and match depending on your opponent. But you just need to make sure you have enough presence for the early game, control for the mid game, and power for the late game, if that makes sense. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you play a control list, or you play lists that sound like the list I've described, please let me know how you think it goes and offer any advice. Or maybe if you're an aggressive player and you want to counter these controlling lists, be sure to let people know in the comments how to go about doing it. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I will see you again.